you know. so,
Okay, Sharon.
so yeah, thank you. You know, I feel better now. So there'll probably be questions that come in, and if any of the moderators are watching, and if there's anything that's a question of really good note, I mean, all questions are amazing. Point them out at the end because we're going to talk about the situation for why Sandra is here today, and I don't want to interrupt her with questions because I want to get the story out. So, would you like to tell us why you're here today, Sandra? Would you like to start off?
Yeah. Basically, I'm here to tell a story that, just like Stephen and Brendan, starts with a girl, 14-year-old girl. Her name was Jodie Jones, and on the 30th of June 2003, Jodie was found just after 11:30 at night, brutally murdered. She was found by a search party of 4 people. So her 14-year-old boyfriend, Luke Mitchell, and 3 other members of Jodie's family, her sister, her gran, and her sister's boyfriend. Now, I've studied wrongful convictions for 17 years, and the one thing that I have found is that there are similarities in all of these cases. The same things come up again and again and again. So I will be pointing out some of the
Yeah,
similarities.
sure.
You'll see them for yourself. But the main thing is, within half an hour of Jodie being found, Luke, 14-year-old Luke Mitchell, was the main suspect within half an hour. Now, that's
Okay.
not just my opinion.
No.
The,
Yeah.
the Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission came to the same conclusion when they reviewed the case as a possible miscarriage of justice. So, straight away, this 14-year-old kid is the main suspect. The media went nuts. They went absolutely crazy. Really sensationalist reporting, all sorts of innuendo and rumour and everything else, all pointing the finger at this boy. Now, Luke turned 15 3 weeks after Jodie was murdered. So this is a kid in the media. Within 6 weeks, they were putting his pictures all over the media as well. So everybody knew who he was, everybody could identify him. And one of the things about Scotland, our justice system is, I could say, a law unto itself, but it's very unique. Even within the UK, it's different from English law, very different from other legal systems. And one of the things back in 2003 that was legal, it was actually legal up to 2011, was something called a Section 14 interview. And that meant the police could come and take a person, anybody, including children, and detain them for up to 6 hours, interrogate them, and let's be honest, that's what it was. It wasn't questioning, it was interrogation, without access to legal representation or advice.
Okay.
So you take a 15-year-old kid, you put them in a room with grown men who have free reign in that room to do what they like. In Luke's case, that happened on the 14th of August 2003, so 6 weeks after the murder.
Yeah.
There was a what they called a responsible adult in the room who never opened his mouth from start to finish, never intervened, never said a word. And I've seen the transcript of this interrogation, and it's horrifying, especially when you consider that this is a child.
Yeah.
So fast forward, it takes them another 9.5 months to actually arrest Luke. And then they held him for another 7.5 months after that before the trial started. He turned 16 just before the end of that period, or just
Yeah.
in the middle of that period. Another quirk of Scots law at the time, we had a thing called the 110-day rule. So if you were arrested and detained, you had to be tried within 110 days or set free and never charged again. That was Scots
Right.
law.
Okay.
In Luke's case, 110 days, 3.5 months? Luke was held 7.5 months before he came to trial. So when you look at this in the big scheme of things, the Crown Prosecution Service had 17 months to build their case.
Yeah.
for the prosecution. The defence would only have had 110 days had that period not been extended unlawfully, some would say.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the 17 months, so 17 months for the CPS to build their case, 17 months of relentless media coverage pointing to Luke as the murderer. So why is this? Why do I think this is a miscarriage of justice? Well, start with, I think, the thing that shocks everybody. There was no DNA from Luke at the murder scene on the clothing on Jodie's body. Nothing. Nor was there any DNA from Jodie or the murder scene on Luke. Now, this was a particularly brutal, bloody murder. Jodie's throat, and I'm sorry, we have to touch on these things.
That's okay.
Jodie's throat
See.
was cut 12 to 20 times. She'd been beaten, she'd been dragged by the hair, her body was mutilated after she was killed. And there's no transfer of trace evidence to Luke had he been the killer. So the prosecution, probably unsurprisingly, did not base any of their case on DNA. And you might think, well, that's because there was none. I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's just leave it at there was none of Luke's. And then we'll come back to the next bit. So Luke's taken to trial, and there are three main planks to the case. The first is that there were eyewitness sightings of Luke at each end of the path that Jodie was travelling down, or would have been travelling down, when she was somehow intercepted and got behind the wall that bordered that path into the woodland strip where she was found. So reliable sightings, apparently, each end of the path. The second point was that Luke didn't have an alibi. And the third was that Luke had special knowledge, that he knew where Jodie's body was and led the searchers directly to it. So if we go back and have a look at these one at a time. The first one, the sighting. So this woman came forward, apparently completely independent, didn't know either family, came forward and said that she saw two people who could have been Luke and Jodie at the East House's end of the path. So it's the end that Jodie lived, her village was at. There's a problem with that, in that the people she described are nothing like Luke and Jodie at the time. So Jodie was wearing a black, really baggy hoodie with a bright orange Deftones logo across the back. Really baggy black jeans. And this lady describes a girl in a blue sweatshirt with lighter blue bootcut jeans. So there's the first description. The description of the guy is of late teens to early 20s, very thick hair sticking up in a clump at the back, wearing fishing style clothes. Luke was it's sandy brown hair, sorry. Luke was a skinny 14-year-old kid with poker straight blonde hair. So the first thing is, these two descriptions are nothing like Jodie and Luke. But in that interview on the 14th of August, the police took a Polaroid picture of Luke and they inserted it in a spread of other boys, much younger than Luke, all with short hair, mostly with dark hair, and took them off to this lady and said, can you see the person you saw at the path? Now, she'd said she didn't see either of their faces. Didn't see either of their faces. And she picks out Luke from this photo spread. But what she says is, he's most like the person I saw. Not he is, just he's most like.
Most like.
Even though she'd said previously she could only identify the person from his clothing. So Luke's in a black t-shirt. The person she describes is in fishing clothes. So there's one eyewitness, supposedly reliable eyewitness account crashed. Go to the other end of the path, which is the end that Luke lived at. And another two witnesses are brought on who say they saw this guy and they identify Luke. And there's 2 points to this. First of all, neither of them saw his face. Again, didn't see his face. And the police brought a newspaper picture of Luke to one of these witnesses and said, "Is this the guy you saw?" And she goes, "Yeah, that's him." She then contacts the other lady that was in the caravan and said, "I know I'm not supposed to speak to you, but the police just brought this. Look at this picture." And she admits this in court. So there's another eyewitness.
Yeah.
But another quirk of Scots law, we still allow dock identification. So you put the guy in the dock and you stick a couple of police officers or security guards either side, and then you say to the witness, "Can you see the person in the court today that you saw that day?" It's such a leading process.
Yeah.
Anyway, the First Lady goes, "No, don't see him anywhere." So the one that's supposed to be the most reliable identification doesn't identify Luke.
Yeah.
The other two go, "It's the dude in the dock." So the defence asks them, "How can you say that when you didn't see his face?" And they go, one of them says, "I'll never forget those eyes. Those eyes that she
From
didn't
the back.
see."
Aye. Yeah.
So that's the first plank knocked out. It's gone. Second one was alibi. So Luke's mum and his brother were Luke's alibi. They said he was home cooking dinner because his mum was at work, his brother was at work, Luke was home first, he cooked the dinner. There is some evidence up to a point that Luke was in the house, so phone calls made to the landline, made from the landline, had to be made by somebody. We know where his mum was, we know where his brother was, and there's only 3 of them live in the house. But the police decided that mum and brother lied to cover up for Luke. There's no evidence that they did. They just, that was their decision. But again, there are
Like
other people. There are other people whose alibis changed, or who didn't have an alibi, and they were not under any suspicion whatsoever. Only the Mitchells. The final bit, and this is a bit for me, and I think it's a bit for a lot of people, that knocks a massive hole in this case, and that is special knowledge. So the claim was that Luke went out with his dog to look for Jodie that night, went over the wall straight to the body, and he could only have done that if he knew where the body was, and if he knew where the body was, he must have been the killer. Okay, that's the reasoning. So let's rewind a bit. Luke set off up the path. He's got good reason to go up the path. It's a shortcut to Jodie's mum's house.
Yeah.
He said, "I'll come up the path. If I don't find her, I'll come to the house. Grown-ups decide what to do next." Sounds reasonable. The other 3 members of the search trio had no reason to go to the path that night, because all the information they'd been given was that Jodie was supposed to be in East Houses or Mayfield that night, nowhere near Newbattle. The only reason to be on the path is to get to Newbattle. If she's in East Houses or Mayfield, she's got no reason to be on the path. But these 3 people made their way straight to the path and could never explain why. They could never say why they went there. Jodie's sister, on the stand, it was put to her, had Luke not doubled back to the V, they would have walked right past Jodie that night and carried on all the way to Newbattle. And her sister said, "We weren't going all the way to Newbattle, we were only going to the path." So again, bit strange. Anyway, these 3 members of the search trio, the granny suggested that they double check the path that Luke had just come up. They met him at the top of the path, suggested a double check. All good. On the way back down, Luke's dog reacted. She was training to be a tracker. And they've passed this V break in the wall, and suddenly the dog darts over to the wall, standing up on her hind legs, scrabbling at the wall, air sniffing. Luke recognises an alert. Now, he doesn't know what she's alerting to, just she's alerting to something. So the granny's fallen behind a bit. Luke doubles back to the V, so because it's an 8-foot high wall. So he doubles back to the V. So
Big wall.
Hands the lead to the granny and jumps over the wall, then turns left to where the dog reacted. And in his torchlight, he sees what he first thought was a tailor's mannequin, a white tailor's mannequin. And he calls out, "I think there's something here," because when he swings his torch round, he sees what he sees. The sister and her boyfriend had continued down the path, so they came running back. The boyfriend went over, and then the boys helped the granny because
Yeah.
she insisted. And that's the granny went over. Now, it was claimed that the granny touched Jodie's body. Early
Right.
claims were that she cradled her. Later, they said she touched her forehead. So far, so good. And for the first month, that's the story that all 4 searchers tell.
Okay.
And then at the end of that month, the stories start to change. And the other 3 members of the search trio start to say the dog didn't do anything. Luke just went straight to the V point and over. Dog didn't do anything. Now, for example, in one of his early statements, the sister's boyfriend describes the dog standing up against the wall. He says it's an Alsatian, it's a big dog. When it was standing up against the V, its head was higher than the V. How did he have such a false memory to later say the dog did nothing at all? So the changing of these statements over time meant that by the time they got to trial, by the time they were on the stand at trial, they were all 3 were singing from the same hymn sheet. Dog didn't do anything. Luke was absolutely nonchalant, showed no emotion whatsoever. Just kind of climbed over. Oh, there's a body here, and climbed back over. It's the early statements. Early statements show that that is not what happened. But the jury didn't get to hear that because the 3 searchers wouldn't accept that version of their statements on stand. And I'd never heard of the concept of statements being adopted. If you don't agree on the stand that what's in your statement is what you said, the jury can't use it as evidence. So they just said, no, I didn't say that.
That's
I didn't mean
strange.
that.
Does that only to witnesses? Does that only apply to witnesses?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking if somebody says, "Oh, I did kill her," like out in the street, if somebody killed someone and says, "I killed her," and then they says, "Oh no, I never said that," the jury don't get to hear it. Is that what you mean?
Well, confession.
Or does it kind of does it go into the confession route rather than the sort of witness statement route? Right. So sorry to interrupt. You made me wonder there. I thought, oh, that's weird. Right. So sorry. Sorry, Sandra.
If I said to the police tonight, so I spoke to Sharon on Sunday, and she was actually sitting behind that camera pointing a gun at me, and they went, "Oh, right, goodness me, that was under duress. We better go and arrest her." And in 6 months' time, I go to court and they say, "So, Sharon was pointing a gun at you." I'm going, "I didn't say that."
Then that's it.
Yeah. So these 3 are telling the same story for a month. Then the story changes, and by the time they come to give their evidence, it's all completely changed.
Yeah.
Now, I meant to say as well when we were talking about the identifications, Luke was never in an identity parade or a Viper. Nobody ever picked him out from other individuals apart from that really dodgy picture spread at the beginning. There was never an identity parade. There was never a Viper, a video parade done. And the police, the senior investigating officer, said that he'd never heard of an identification parade being done in these circumstances.
What?
That was his
like, what else can you say other than what?
It's only guidelines.
Okay, it's like a murder. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only guidelines, and he'd never heard of it being done in those circumstances. And then at appeal, they later argued that Luke can't complain that he didn't get an ID parade because he didn't ask for one prior to trial. Well, they didn't arrest him till 9.5 months later. They didn't bring him to trial till 17 months later, in which case the whole of bloody Scotland could have identified him. What would be the point in putting him in an identity parade by that stage?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an absolute mess. So I said earlier, there was no DNA, so the prosecution didn't found on DNA.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that. There was no DNA of Luke's.
Yeah.
The other male DNA found on Jodie's body and on her clothing.
Okay.
There were 5 male profiles, some full profiles, some partial profiles. 5 male profiles, 4 of which were unidentified at the time, only 1 of which was identified. Now, I've just
Okay.
told you there was none of Luke's there.
5 other people. Yeah.
The full DNA profile that was found on Jodie's t-shirt originated from her sister's boyfriend.
Okay.
The story, you could not make this up. The story was that the police went back to the sister's boyfriend and said, is it possible Jodie borrowed this t-shirt from her sister? They then came up with a couple of theories. So one of them was washing machine transfer, that the t-shirt, the sperm heads and semen had somehow transferred in the washing machine. And then to explain other bits on the t-shirt, that rainwater had transferred it further on other bits of the t-shirt and also onto her underwear.
Okay.
Scientifically, sorry, go on.
No, it's okay. No, I'm just going, it's like, what others? Did rainbows drop it on, you know? And it's like, what other stupid scenarios were they? Sorry.
Well,
it's just like,
yeah,
what are they saying? It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, these were the excuses they came up with. The one thing that's always bothered me, this claim that it was Jodie's sister's t-shirt, again, it's never been proven. But there's no DNA from her sister on the t-shirt. None.
Oh, it probably came off in the wash, you know, that same wash that didn't wash the boyfriend's DNA off.
Yeah. One other profile was identified 3 years later. This guy's DNA was run through the database for another matter, and it threw up a match to the Jodie Jones case. So the Crown sent it to the defence, and it turns out this guy was in the woodland strip that night, masturbating using a condom because he had no privacy at home.
So you do it outside
and he
the
discarded the
open,
condom.
you know, it's like, well, that's not very
You need privacy.
private, you know. It's like crazy.
So they identify him 3 years later. They go back to him. They say, "Listen, buddy, you know, you were in the woods that night." Now, at the time he said he was in the woods, Jodie had been dead for 3.5 hours, according to the prosecution case.
How close was he?
And he said, well, the condom was 20 yards from the body.
20 yards.
Yeah. And this woodland strip, people think it's like a massive wood. It's not. It's probably, you're lucky if it's 30 feet wide.
Yeah.
And it's maybe, I don't know, 800 meters long. He'd gone way down behind the wall, down the V area, but didn't see anything. It was broad daylight as well by that time.
Yeah.
So they said, okay, thank you very much, off you go. And when we asked why it hadn't been taken any further, they said, well, we've got somebody for the murder. We've got Luke Mitchell for the murder. Case is closed. So that's an outline of the case. The appeal judges in 2008 said that the police officers in that Section 14 interview had lost it and that their behaviour was, what was it, outrageous and to be deplored.
Yes.
That no miscarriage of justice happened because Luke didn't confess. This is what you're up against. This is what you see over and over again.
Did they also say that Luke gave as good as he got to the police?
They did, yeah.
A 14-year-old gave the police as good as he got. A 14-year-old. Well, 15, sorry, 15. 15.
Yeah. So here's a kid locked
still,
in a room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they started with 2 officers, then one went out and another came in, and then there was 3, and then another one left, and then they did the good cop, bad cop. Did this whole thing with a 15-year-old kid and said he gave as good as he got. Is that really what we're going to base our justice system for children on? But yeah.
That annoyed me when I saw that. I thought, gave as good as he got. It's like, that just, I don't know, that annoyed me because it's like, that just seems like, you know, so bizarre even to make that statement, you know.
Well, it's
fair enough they might be saying he stuck up for himself, you know, even to say, oh, he stuck up for himself, but even he shouldn't have to stick up for himself. It should be a fair, you know, safe environment for a child to be getting an interview, not
Yep.
Being under duress when he feels he has to give back as good as he's getting. It's like
I
so.
think the other thing about that particular interview, that's what I was going to say actually, one of the differences, and it's really difficult here in Scotland, is you see other cases where they can put all the stuff online and you can
Yeah.
watch the interviews and you can look at the statements and you can
Like
read
the
the stuff.
Brendan.
Yeah. Yeah. In Scotland, I have never had access to the videos. Never. I've never seen them. But even if I did, even if I got them and put them online, I'd be committing an offence.
Yeah.
We can't do it. We are so restricted on the information that we can put out there. If I put out copies of the statements, anything like that, the transcripts.
The rest of the UK, you're permitted to put it out. Obviously not this case, but other cases that you're working on, you're permitted to put out the information. See,
Yep,
it's
I've seen
strange.
other cases put the whole lot up.
So it does put people in Scotland at a disadvantage if they're trying to get in wrongful conviction overturned.
And prisoners in Scotland as well.
Yeah.
You, as a journalist, you can't use anything you get from a prisoner in a prison visit.
Right.
In the public domain. You're not allowed.
I mean, is it, they think it's to do with privacy, or, I don't know, to keep the sort of what happens in court sacred some way, or is it?
That's the excuse.
Yeah, I mean, is it like that? They're sort of saying it's like keep it within the actual, court, everything's,
protect the integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the truth is, if they've got nothing to hide, they should have nothing to fear.
Yes, I agree.
Let's just see everything. If you've got nothing to hide, if it's all been done properly and fairly and justly, put it all out there. What have you got to lose? You would shut people like me up.
Yeah, we would never want to do that, Sandra. We would never want to shut you up.
But that's been my challenge to the justice system for 17 years.
Yeah.
You want me to go away? You want me to stop saying this stuff?
Yeah.
On you go. Show everybody what you've got. But they won't do it.
So in terms of someone that is wrongfully convicted, that was a child, that's basically charged as an adult, getting 20 years. It's 20 years, isn't it? He was given
20 years,
and he's been in for what is it? Is it 15 years? He's been. I know you've been in. Not since
this year.
16 this year. I mean, that must make him same sort of age as Brendan Dassey.
Yeah,
about the same sort of age.
Luke has now spent more time in prison than he has out here. He'll be 32.
Right.
This year. His 32nd birthday this year.
So it's
and
so
he was
sad.
15 when they incarcerated him.
It's so sad. It's so sad.
And that's lifetimes that people can never get back, especially young people.
Yeah.
All the developments that the rest of us have been fortunate enough to live through.
Relationships, families, education, jobs, just that whole
driving license,
freedom. Yeah, all the firsts.
Yeah.
First mistakes you make, not ones that end up getting you in jail, hopefully. But it's life lessons, isn't it? It's life lessons. But talking about mistakes, I think I forgot to send the link to Paul. Can you give me a wee second?
Of course.
Well, he would have just talked anyway. We wouldn't have got to say anything because he's a wee chatterbox. So excuse me a wee second. I thought I did send it.
No,
I sent it to you. Maybe I sent him that one that I should. That wasn't meant. It's totally unprofessional.
No, these things happen.
Right, I'm going to wear I gave it to you. Oh, and then the earphone falls out. See, totally professional. It's dead professional here. Because you're not used to being on live programmes, and that's why I was saying, don't worry, it's fine. Things happen. Things happen. It's like, not as if it's live TV. It's YouTube, which is a great place for people to put things out right away.
I think social media has been the best thing ever to happen for wrongful convictions.
Yeah,
I mean, when the first Making a Murderer series came out,
I
was just like, oh my God, look how many people are interested. Look how many people that are paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
For 13 and a half years, a little sorry huddle of us
Yeah.
had been banging on doors and getting absolutely nowhere. And then you see
Mm-hmm.
this explosion of interest, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh yes, this is how we're
Exactly.
going to do it.
So I mean, you must have been in some state when you watched Making a Murderer, knowing
Oh,
everything you know. Because I believe your last book, was it No Smoke?
yeah.
No Smoke. I've actually got, that sounds like a wee plug or something. I've actually got Sandra's book. I've got Sandra's book here. The one that's got all the information about Jodie Jones and the Luke Mitchell case. So if anybody's, you can get it on Amazon. See, it's like a plug or something, but I'm not meaning it like that.
That was definitely a shameless plug.
Was it? Oh, well, it was my fault, not your fault. It's not as if it's my book. I think it's a cardinal sin to promote yourself. As long as someone else does it, it's okay. But yeah, so your last book, you laid out all the ways how a wrongful conviction can occur. Is that right? Is that
It was all the
is it like 10 points or something?
Yeah, all the similarities.
I've not read that
I'd
one.
seen.
Sorry. Forgive me.
No. No, it's withdrawn at the minute. It needs to be updated.
Right, okay.
There's been a lot of things that need to be updated, so
Okay.
it's not on sale at the minute. But yeah,
Right.
just going through it with things like, you know, I wrote some of them down last night.
Yeah.
Scientific impossibilities.
Mhm.
You know, you see
Yeah.
any of these cases, scientific
Mhm.
impossibilities. Claim DNA matches that are nothing of the sort. Oh, this DNA matches so it's no, it doesn't.
Mhm.
Stop it. Yeah,
Mhm.
talking rubbish. Convenient evidence either suddenly appearing that wasn't there before.
The key in
or
Making a Murderer. Yeah. It's like, oh, I found it.
evidence.
Yeah.
Look, imagine that. Yeah. Or evidence that was there but pointed to somebody else.
Mhm.
So we'll just either not look at it at all, we'll not gather it at
Yeah.
all, or we'll hide it somewhere,
Mhm.
or we'll go to ridiculous lengths
Yeah.
to explain it away. So
Mhm.
that's another one. Compromised or manipulated evidence.
Mhm.
Yeah, every single case you've got the accused themselves being manipulated horribly. You've got other witnesses being leaned on. So in Luke's
Mhm.
case, the majority of these witnesses were 14 years old or younger. They
Yeah.
were dabbling with cannabis. They were being naughty boys and girls.
Mhm.
Can you imagine when the cops turn up in droves and your mum and dad are just about to find out what you were up to last Saturday when you actually said you were having a sleepover?
Hiding everything. Yep. Not telling the truth. Yep.
And we do know
Let's get
that
together
these
and
kids,
make a story up. Yep.
yeah, we
Sorry.
do know that these kids were manipulated
Mhm.
because they're adults now and
Mhm.
they've been getting in touch and they've been saying,
Mhm.
I need to talk to you. I need to tell you
Right.
what they did to us,
Mhm.
and how we were basically forced into saying what they wanted us to say. So we know
Yeah.
that happened because those kids
Yeah.
didn't stay kids forever.
And everybody's got a conscience. Well, we hope, that everybody's got
Yeah,
a
well,
conscience. Some people
a
have
lot
got
of them
a guilty conscience. Some people,
Well, it's interesting
yeah.
that a lot of them that are coming forward now, they're coming forward because they've got kids of their own.
I was going to say that probably because of kids of their own and
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think
Changes
that, well,
people.
when you have your children, it does change something in you.
Mhm.
Which is actually that's another thing. There's since the beginning, since I started doing this, there's been this constant screech from certain quarters that I am a murderer lover and I'm campaigning to get a brutal murderer out of prison. I've got 2 girls.
Yeah.
They were both round about Jodie's age at the time. I'd love for somebody to explain why they think I would do that.
No.
Why would I, with 2 girls round about the same age in the area, be saying, yeah, I know he's a vicious murderer, but let him back out among us.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I've
Yeah.
never understood that particular attack, yeah, no, don't understand it.
No. I mean, how anyone
But
would be happy with the guilty person just, I mean, look at Stephen and Brendan's case. I mean, it's like, we know they're innocent because we've looked at all. We're not a criminologist. I'm saying we. It's not the royal we. It's like us as in this. The making a murderer, well,
yeah,
Mammothon community, you know, sort of thing. And, you know, it's like there's some of the people have looked really deep into and read every single thing. You know, they're really, some of us have been at it from like day one. But some of us have lost themselves, I think, in it. You know, it's just like you get so
too easy to do.
yeah. I was going to say that you'll be able to identify with that.
Absolutely.
So I mean, there's so many things. I mean, I always say making a murderer is just like a wee tiny fraction of the whole picture. You know, the program, and that was bad enough. Making a murderer was bad enough. What we saw. But it's just like, you know, the way that Brendan can't get a break, you know, with all the law things, you know, they go to trials, and, you know, Stephen's trying to get, you know, like an evidentiary hearing type thing, you know, because there's all this new stuff that's came out. Kathleen Zellner's got all this new evidence, and, you know, it's just, they just can't get a break. They just can't get a break. So, I mean, is that the same with Luke? Is he just can't get a break?
It's something I find really interesting, the new evidence thing, and it's called different things, and there are different processes depending on where you are in the world, but they all amount to the same thing, and that is, we will put as many obstacles in the way of evidence that turns up later getting back into the court. So had that been discovered at the beginning, it would have been quite easy to get in. The further down the line you get, the more and more and more difficult it is to get that in. If you can't get the new evidence in to prove that the evidence that was heard is wrong, how do you overturn it? And like here in the UK, and it is the same in Scotland and England on this count, there are minor differences. New evidence is that which was not or could not reasonably have been available to the defence at the time of the original trial. So if there's evidence that the defence, for whatever reason, did not follow up on at the time, and then somebody like me comes along years later and goes, hello, what's this?
What's all this for? Like,
this shows that and that can't be true. And you try to go back to court with it, they go, no, that was available to the original defence. It's not new evidence. Nothing you can do with it.
But what about, like, I might be wrong, but they could, with like Stephen's case, they would say, what's the phrase they used? Like, the defence wasn't, there's a phrase that's went out of my head. Like when they say the defence wasn't good, but that's not the phrase. It's like there's
insufficient or
something like that. It's been right out of my head. So they can take things back and say, you know, there's a ineffectiveness of counsel. That's it.
Yeah.
I know, because I was going, it's not something defence. It's not something. And they can go back and say, because there was some things that Stephen Avery himself had put in when he was acting as his own lawyer, and Kathleen Zellner had to say, like, there was an ineffectiveness of counsel because he was the counsel. And the same with Jerome Buting and Dean Strang, the original trial lawyers for Stephen. She had to put in like certain things. It means that if they put that in, she can then put in things again to try and get certain things looked at. But in Scotland, you can't do that. No.
We do have a route for like crap defence, basically. But you can't.
Why did I not just say that phrase instead of trying to remember what it was? Damn.
You can't use it. It's virtually impossible to use, because the first thing you have to do is find a lawyer who's willing to say that one of his colleagues did a rubbish job. Not going to happen. Not in a place as small as Scotland. Not in an area where they need to back each other up in order to stay in business, basically. So although it does exist, it's virtually impossible to use. in the UK, not just in Scotland, in the UK.
See, that's sad because Dean Strang and Jerry Bruton are like basically like, no, if you need to say that about us because Stephen's innocent, it's more important to get the innocent people out than it is to
Yeah.
save face. You know, so they're
Yeah.
like, go for it, you know, and I think that's commendable.
Yeah, and I think that was initially the reason for that legislation, was so that it's to get round that loophole of, well,
Yep.
the original lawyers knew about it. If you can give another route in, then that's protecting justice. It's not getting people off the hook. It's protecting justice. It's making sure it stays fair.
Yeah.
But if they bring that route in, and the original lawyers go, not touching that, where's the accountability? Where's the fairness? Where's the ability to bring it back for further examination?
See, it's similar to the way that the certain police forces won't go against other police forces and say, you know, and I'm not anti-police, I'm just anti-corrupt police, like many of us are. It's like the police are amazing if they're doing their job properly, looking after you. If you're in danger and you need their help, and they're there, and they don't discriminate against you for other matters that you're maybe involved in and leave you high and dry with a threat over your life, if you know what I mean.
Exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can see where police need to have that sort of solidarity, because they want somebody to, keep their back. If it's like maybe in America where you're in a gun shootout or something like that, and you need to trust the cop behind you is like looking after you, but not the sort of down the pub bros don't, tell on each other when they're putting a 15-year-old in jail,
There's a big, big problem we have in Scotland now. We only have one police force.
Yeah.
Who holds that accountable? We can't bring in another police force to investigate the first police force's investigation because there's only one police
streamlined.
Force.
Yeah.
So again, it actually drives that problem into the centre.
Yeah.
By not having different forces that are able to look at each other's work. And of course, you're always going to have the ones that are going to stand up for their colleagues. But we have seen in the past where an independent force has been brought in, and they've gone, no, we wouldn't have done that, and that could have been done better. We have seen it. There's no chance for that in Scotland now.
So there's no sort of integrity for the police. Like they've got you get centres for integrity for like DNA lab type things to see that they're working properly. I'm wondering, there's no anything like that to make sure the police are conducting themselves properly. Like the fact you're saying they can't. Obviously, there'll be like head offices that deal with that, but I mean, ones that are actually really holding them accountable, not just like happy to rubber stamp.
Yeah,
the chief said that.
Yeah, we had I can't remember what the organisation's called now, but we had an organisation set up for complaints about the new single police force. But Chocolate Fireguard comes to mind because it was clear from the off that they were going to be a repository for complaints. That's it. The complaint goes there, and then it's fudging and stonewalling.
And you said repository, not suppository.
Well,
maybe a fly. For all the uses we be going to do, But guess what? We've been on here for nearly 45 minutes now. How does that feel? Does it feel like it's went in quick?
Yes.
It really goes in quick, doesn't it? It really does.
Yeah.
And we didn't get Paul. He didn't come on. It must have taken the huff at me with the link.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
I sent it in the main. There was like a main group. I maybe put it in the wrong one. But I was excited about you coming on, so you can forgive. Hope you forgives me. But
it means a lot for me and for Luke's family to be given opportunities to do things like this, because for all those years, it was nobody wanted to hear, nobody wanted to give this story.
Name was mud.
Yeah, so it really is, like, for us, really, really appreciate the opportunity to do things like this. Who knows who might hear this, who might go, hang on.
Yeah.
I was there in 2003.
Hmm.
You know, I saw this or heard
Yeah.
that, or who knows? It's
So
another way.
where would be the best way for? So no, it's okay. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. I was like, oh, I've got a question. I was going to say, where's the best place then for people to go to if they do have something that they've recalled or something they want to say? You know, oh, I should have came forward at the time, but I didn't. You know,
At the
where should
moment,
they go?
yeah, at the moment, the simplest way for people to do that is to find me on Facebook. Because
Yeah,
every time we tried to set up a couple of fundraisers
yeah.
and they were taken down before we even got them launched. We
I
had,
remember that.
yeah, we had a website built, ready to go live, and
Hmm.
somehow it got infiltrated with mega spam, like 12,500 fake subscribers before it went live. How is that even
It's
possible? So trying to get a new website built,
mhm.
we're in lockdown at the minute,
Yeah,
and we're coming up to 17 years. I'm getting tired of you can't do this, you can't do that.
yeah.
And I mean, in reference to the case, we're 17 years
Hmm.
down the line.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
kid there who's lost his entire youth.
yeah,
So if it comes to getting the new website up and putting stuff on there that's not been out before,
yeah.
well, maybe it's time.
Hmm.
Maybe it's time. So I will announce on Facebook when we finally get a way to get a website set up and all of
Yeah.
that. It will be on Facebook, but if anybody wants to get in touch, just look for me, Sandra Lean. The picture is a hand with a yellow paper clip. It's not a picture of me. So
Like,
it, it's that Sandra Lean. Um, if anybody
yeah.
wants to get in
Be
touch.
careful of fake Sandra Leans. This is a real one.
Yeah, the one with the yellow paper clip.
Yeah, paperclip. But yeah, I mean,
And
it's
anybody that's worried about getting in touch, nothing ever goes anywhere. Nobody's ever identified or named or anything. We might come back, I might come back and speak to you or ask if you'd like to speak on the phone or something like that. But your information will not be passed on to anybody without your permission. So please, if you've got anything to say, it will be completely confidential.
yeah. I mean, it's really good for people to come forward if they do have, because even I mean, when they put out appeals and say, "Oh, tell us whatever it is," even if it's small, they might think it's nothing, but that wee detail might make world of difference to these
Yeah,
cases. You know, that's the thing, isn't
these are
it?
the sort of things that people don't understand. Oh, I didn't really see anything. It was just a couple of guys. Whoa, wait, rewind. Did you say it was a couple of guys?
Mhm.
Oh,
They
we've
weren't
always
on
been told
mopeds
that.
by any chance. these these hypothetical couple of guys, were they? Yeah,
No,
yeah.
but
You read Sandra's book.
circumstances where, for example, we've always been told it was a couple of girls, and then
Yeah.
years later, somebody comes forward and says, "No, it was a couple of guys." I
Mm,
know it was because they were sitting on my gate, and you're like,
yeah.
"Uh-oh, yeah, there's something that's been wrong for all these
Yeah.
years, and we're only hearing about it now." And there have been quite a few little bits and pieces like that
Yeah.
that have kind of made us sit back and go, whoa, there's
Mhm.
even more to this than
Yeah.
all these years we thought there was.
Yeah.
Finding out, for example, that Stocky Man, so this was a guy seen following Jodie, and this is a far more reliable sighting because
Yeah.
one of the people that saw Stocky Man knew Jodie. So she saw
Right.
this girl walking down the East Houses Road and said that was Jodie, and she knew
Mhm.
Jodie. The other witness didn't know Jodie, but said from the description this was the girl. And following
Yeah.
behind her was a stocky man with a backpack who was never traced. They
Mm.
never found him. Or this is on the way to the path. And he was just quietly dropped from the investigation.
Yeah.
Or so we thought. After the Criminal Cases Review Commission went through and gave their report, they refused to refer the case back as an appeal, as a possible miscarriage of justice. But what they did find was that Stocky Man was identified way
Mm.
back in 2003, and the police never released that information to the defence. So in 2014, they go back to the witness and they're asking her questions, and our memories faded, like most of us, after 11 and a half years. And they conclude that her memory in 2014 was more reliable than in 2003.
That's smart. No.
So
Yeah.
we've taken this one eyewitness identification, which is so dodgy, it just cannot stand, over another 2 eyewitness identifications.
Yeah.
One of which is rock solid because the person knew Jodie, and we've just swept that aside and gone, nah, we're not going to look at that. Why? Again, why? Didn't fit with the narrative.
So, is there any, like we're all wires getting caught there. Like, well, we're all doing this for Stephen and Brendan. So, are there any organisations for Luke and Jodie? Like, because we do it for Teresa as much as we do it for Stephen and Brendan. Or is it pretty fragmented? I don't like using the phrase camp, but are they pretty separate? The people that kind of want justice for, or do they feel like they've got justice for Jodie?
Jodie's
it's like
family,
that's the end of, or
Jodie's
is there
family
support for for Luke? Sorry.
Since the James English interview last year, there's been a huge swell of support for Luke, and we're trying
Brilliant.
we were just getting things together when lockdown and website and everything got crashed. But what we're trying to do is set up something like you've got going. And where people can come together. Lots of people want to help. They keep asking, what can we do? Until we've got a central structure. Other than keeping sharing the story, there's not much anybody can do at the minute. But we're hoping to build that into an organisation, pretty much like what you're doing. As far as Jodie's family are concerned, they are utterly 100% convinced Luke is guilty. And I can see why they're convinced. The saddest thing is that when the truth comes out, and it will, I have no doubt it will eventually come out, that family will have spent at least 17 years hating the wrong people, while Jodie's murderer could have been standing next to them in the supermarket or sitting next to them.
I mean, that just gives me it just gives you the heebie-jeebies, the Scottish word, doesn't it? It just, it's just.
And I always use the Rachel Nickell case as an example there. So when Rachel was murdered on Wimbledon Common, our little boy, her 2-year-old, was with her when her body was found. And the police went after a guy called Colin Stagg, who had nothing to do with it. But when it went to court, it got thrown out because basically they set this guy up. But then for years, the police wouldn't admit they just made an absolute screw up of it. So they kept the suggestion that they'd got the right guy, but he somehow got away in a technicality. And then I think it was 16, 17 years later, it turns out that this guy, Robert Napper, was actually the murderer, and he'd already attacked women in the area. He was already in the system. But because they were so focused on Colin Stagg, they didn't go after him. But then there's Rachel's family and her little boy, who for all those years were led to believe that the guy who did it had somehow wriggled off the hook, even though the police paid compensation to Colin Stagg. There was still this sort of whiff of suspicion. And
the psychological damage. Sorry. No, I get carried away there. Continue. Sorry, forgive me.
That's exactly where I was going. How did they then uproot that 17 years? And I know from people that I've spoken to, the guilt that comes with that, if they can accept it at all, and quite often they can, but when they can accept it, the guilt that comes with it, of knowing, especially where it's somebody that's been incarcerated, of knowing that they supported that all those years and it was the wrong person. So they're just re-victimizing families. If they would do it properly in the first place.
We wouldn't have.
nobody can take away the suffering of
Yeah.
Jodie's family, of Teresa's family. Nobody can take
No,
that suffering
no.
away. It's a terrible, terrible thing that happened. But if we as a society, if we as justice systems
Mhm.
are doing things that are going to re-victimize them,
Yeah.
we
Then
really need to take a look in the mirror.
Paul's appeared. Can I let him in? Oh, he's disappeared again. He's appearing there, and I don't know why to interrupt your flow because you're on a flow, and then
No,
it
Jane.
keeps disappearing. Paul, you keep disappearing and coming in, and it keeps disappearing all the time. And I'm not just saying that because I don't want you to come in. But I am enjoying having Sandra and myself, but I feel honoured. But yeah, I mean, it's an hour's not enough time for you to say everything. I know that. It's not enough time. I mean, you need probably years if you were going to start trying to say everything. So I mean, I really appreciate what you've been
If you
able
were
to
to go
say
back to the
today.
beginning, just it's huge. It's a massive, massive, massive case, and well, it's taken all these years to research it properly.
Yeah.
So every year more comes up, and like, where does this fit? Does it fit at all? Does this take us off in a brand new direction that we didn't know about before? Hi, Paul.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. How are you doing, gorgeous? How are you doing?
Oh, he said the beer this morning. He's been on the beer. How are you, Paul?
Well, me and Dr. Sandra Lane go back a lot further than a lot of people think, because I
Yes.
actually worked alongside Dr. Lane's father when I first moved up to Scotland in 1983, Sandy King. So yes, it's and I'm great friends. This shows my age. Not only was I great friends, obviously, with Sandy King, but also his grandson, who's a good box player, Stephen Todd.
My nephew.
So yes, it goes. It goes back a long way. And I would just like to give a shout out to Derek, who was the first person that actually alerted me to the fact that there was this huge egregiousness over the conviction of Luke Mitchell, and Dr. Sandra Lane, I'd like to just ask you if you would. I don't know if you've already expanded on this, but when we had our conversation at the Grange Tavern, the
Dean.
The Dean Tavern, yes, at Newton Grange. I'll get my facts right in a minute. You pointed out something very interesting, and that was that you had done comparisons between the obviously the Luke Mitchell case and the West Memphis 3.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've covered that at all, but I thought it was absolutely staggering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've not had time to get
no,
that.
That's what I'm saying. We're only an hour. We needed 3 hours.
I texted as soon as you came out. I said, "Listen, if you get involved with Sandra, she will keep you there for at least 3 hours."
I'm surprised you didn't say the same to Sandra about me.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's Ouija's for you, but I mean,
Oh, she's already. She's met the Ouija. She met the Ouija last night.
Met the Ouija.
And very few people do get to meet. You're looking right there. Very few people get to meet the real Ouija.
Yes. Yeah. And one final question for you, Sharon. How much have you enjoyed being on Marathon this year?
Oh, loved it. I've loved having the opportunity. Yeah. It's been great. It's really been great. Yeah. And I've loved being able to represent Scotland. I feel like as if I'm in some sort of beauty contest or something, representing Scotland, and I went world peace. But being able to represent Scotland, we're bringing across a Scottish case, where the wrongful conviction of a child, and that's similar age to Brendan. So I hope people have enjoyed that, having that comparison there, that it's horrible what's happening to Brendan, and it's horrible that it happens everywhere, because Paul, you and I were quite shocked to hear that it happened in Scotland,
Well, yes, we are, because we would like to think of ourselves, certainly in the UK in general, as being above the kind of shenanigans that went on in Wisconsin, and clearly there are times when they're not. Finally, a question to Sandra Lane. You do realise that part of the contract with you being a guest this year is you're a host next year. Sharon didn't explain that to you.
No, that must have been in the missing email, you know.
Ah.
Somebody put that in the small print somewhere.
Yeah. It's one of these technical glitches. You know how it is. You know what the internet's like.
Conveniently lost.
Exactly. But I hope that maybe, I'm not asking it as a question because I don't want to be presumptuous, but I would hope at some future point that maybe yourself, Sandra, and Paul and me could have another chat like this, you know, when it's...
Oh, I'd love to.
It'd be really good when we've got, you know...
It would be quite nice to do the West Memphis thing as well, because we've not even had a chance to touch on that today. So
yeah, and there's one other thing, Sandra, I'll speak to you later, but there was a subject you were talking about, the other one that you're interested in, that you and I have maybe got in common, that I would love to talk to you about. That is, we're all great. It's cloak and daggers here. It's cloak and daggers. You know, I hope you know what I mean when I'm doing that.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, that'd be great.
I would love to have a chat with you about that, because that's not so doom and gloomy and not so you know. But it's very much something that interests me, and I was quite intrigued when we were talking about that last night. I was like, oh. But I hope everybody's jumped over to Linda's. I know I said that quickly in the chat. I was like, go over to Linda, because everybody will be disappearing. Linda K Listening is on now. Her slots just started, but I really do appreciate that you've came on, Sandra. I really do. I know you're busy woman.
Really appreciate the opportunity. It's great just to have that chance to let people hear a bit more about the case.
Yeah, because this is going. Thank you. I mean, this is all over the. Oh, you're so welcome. You're absolutely so welcome. But I mean, this is going all over the world, so that's what's great. You know, that's what's really great. Let's hope it makes a difference to Brendan, Stephen, and Luke, and all the rest of the wrongfully convicted people.
Yeah.
You know, so
just get people aware. That's the most important thing. Make people aware.
So I'll end the live, but you two hang on a minute because I'm going to ask you something. That nobody's to know, you know, we secrets. But anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. Yeah, I know. He's must be on Dr. Pepper time, you know. Sandra's not met Eric Ozzy yet. She's not met him yet. She's not seen him yet.
Dr. Sandra Lane is one of the most fortunate people on the planet.
Right, so anyway, everybody get over to Linda. Get over there right now. Witch's orders. And enjoy it. And thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. And please remember to go to look for Sandra Lane on Facebook and look out for updates for website coming out, and look out for her coming back on again, because that'll be good. So anyway, everybody, bye. I'm going to end the live now, and I'll just tell you two when it's done.